Why do you give your best arguments to people who've already decided you're wrong? Think about it. You craft perfect logic, find the right words, stay calm, stay kind, and still nothing changes. They don't want your truth. They want their certainty confirmed. So here's the real question. Are you arguing to win, or are you arguing because you're afraid of what happens when you stop? I want you to sit with that for a second, because if you're watching this, I know something about you already. You're tired. You're exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't fix. You've spent hours, maybe years, trying to help people understand things that should be obvious. You've explained yourself so many times that you've started to question whether you're the one who's confused. You've been called difficult, intense, cold, arrogant, all because you refuse to pretend that confusion is the same thing as wisdom. And here's what nobody tells you, what nobody wants to admit. The pain you're feeling isn't coming from the argument itself. It's coming from your belief that clarity should be universal. You think if you just find the right words, the right tone, the right example, they'll finally get it. But some minds aren't confused. Some minds are committed to misunderstanding. And every minute you spend trying to illuminate someone who's chosen to stay in the dark is a minute stolen from your own light. This video is about something the ancient Chinese philosopher Han Fei understood better than almost anyone in history. He called it the law of clarity, though he never used those exact words. He understood that wisdom has a cost, and that cost is discernment. The ability to know who deserves your truth and who's just shopping for ammunition to use against you later. This isn't about being mean. It's not about giving up on people or becoming some cold, heartless machine. It's about understanding that your energy, your attention, your clarity, these are not infinite resources. And the people who drain them the most are usually the ones who contribute the least to your growth. See, you've been taught something dangerous. You've been taught that good people are patient with everyone. That love means endless tolerance. That if you just keep showing up, keep explaining, keep being kind, eventually everyone will see the light. But that's not love. That's self-abandonment dressed up as virtue. Real wisdom knows the difference between patience and enabling. Real power knows when to speak and when to let silence do the teaching. Han Fei lived in a time of chaos. Ancient China was fracturing. 7 kingdoms were at war. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone had a strategy. And most of them were idiots. He watched as brilliant advisors wasted their lives trying to convince rulers who had no intention of listening. He saw good people destroy themselves, trying to save people who didn't want to be saved. And he realized something that most people never figure out. The moment you defend yourself to someone who's already decided you're the enemy, you've lost. Not the argument, your sovereignty. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to walk through why this keeps happening to you. Why you keep ending up in these exhausting cycles with people who don't think. Why it feels so hard to walk away, even when you know you should. And then I'm going to show you exactly how to stop. Not by getting better at arguing, but by understanding when arguing itself is the trap. And I'm telling you this from experience. I used to believe that intelligence could penetrate ignorance if I just found the right approach. I would stay up late, crafting the perfect response to people who would forget my name by morning. I would rehearse conversations, anticipate objections, build airtight cases for obvious truths. And I lost years to that delusion, not because I was wrong about the facts, but because I was wrong about what I was actually doing. I wasn't educating people. I was performing for an audience that had no intention of changing. I was feeding a dynamic that kept me small while making me feel noble. And the worst part? The people I was arguing with didn't respect me more for my patience. They respected me less, because on some level, they knew what I didn't. That someone who constantly defends themselves is someone who doesn't truly believe in their own authority. They were testing me, and I kept failing the test by taking the bait. Let me tell you a story. There was once an emperor who built a hall with perfect acoustics. Every whisper carried to every corner. He thought this would unite his council in truth. He imagined that when everyone could hear everyone else clearly, wisdom would rise to the top naturally. The best ideas would win. The smartest voices would guide the kingdom. It was a beautiful vision. But here's what actually happened. It became chaos. Every fool spoke endlessly because their voice carried weight. It didn't matter if they had something worth saying. They had a platform, and that felt like power. They talked just to hear themselves echo. They interrupted. They repeated the same points in different words. They mistook volume for validity. And the wise? The wise stayed silent because their words were being drowned out, because they realized that in a space where every voice is treated as equal, wisdom dies. It gets buried under the weight of confident ignorance. The emperor noticed that his best advisor stopped attending these sessions. When he asked why, the advisor said something that changed everything. A hall where every voice is equal is a hall where wisdom dies. You've built a temple to noise, not truth. The emperor was offended at first. Isn't democracy about giving everyone a voice? Isn't fairness about equal access? But then he started paying attention. He noticed that the people who spoke the most contributed the least. He noticed that the people with the best ideas had stopped sharing them because they'd learned it was pointless. So he did something radical. He rebuilt the hall, made it smaller, thicker walls, and he only invited the essential people, the ones who'd proven they could think, not just talk, the ones who asked questions instead of just broadcasting opinions. And suddenly, the kingdom started thriving again. Decisions got made, problems got solved, because the emperor had learned what you're about to learn. Your life is that hall, and you've been letting anyone in. You've been treating your attention like it's a public resource, like everyone who asks for it deserves it, like saying no makes you a bad person. But your attention is your life. It's the most valuable thing you have. And the people who demand the most of it are usually the ones who give back the least. They're not coming to you because you're wise. They're coming to you because you're available. And availability without boundaries isn't generosity. It's self-destruction. Now, I want to pause here because I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, but what if I'm wrong? What if I'm the one who's being closed-minded? What if these people have something to teach me and I'm just being arrogant? And that's a fair question. That's actually a sign that you're the kind of person who should be watching this, because people who are genuinely closed-minded don't worry about being closed-minded. They're certain they're right. The fact that you're questioning yourself means you're already doing the work of discernment. But here's how you know the difference. Ask yourself this. After talking to this person, do I feel sharper or smaller? Do I feel challenged in a way that makes me grow? Or do I feel drained in a way that makes me doubt myself? Does this person ask questions because they want to understand? Or do they ask questions because they want to watch me struggle? A real conversation is reciprocal. Both people walk away changed. Both people offer something. But what you've been doing isn't conversation. It's performance. You're on stage, and they're in the audience eating popcorn, waiting to see if you'll slip up so they can boo. Let me give you another story, a different angle on the same truth. There was a gardener who spent years trying to revive a dying tree. He tried everything: different soil, different amounts of water, fertilizer, pruning techniques. He read books. He consulted experts. He talked to that tree like it could hear him. He poured his heart into saving it. And every season, it looked a little worse. The leaves came in thinner. The branches grew weaker. But he couldn't let it go because he'd invested so much. He thought, if I just try one more thing, maybe this will be the breakthrough. Meanwhile, the rest of his garden was begging for attention. There was a grove of healthy trees that could have been magnificent if he'd just given them a fraction of the energy he was wasting on the dying one. But he didn't. He was trapped in sunk cost. He'd convinced himself that giving up on the tree meant all those years were wasted. One season he got sick. He couldn't tend the garden for months. And when he came back, the dying tree had fallen. He expected to feel grief. But instead, he felt relief. And where that tree had stood, 3 saplings had started growing. The fallen tree had cleared space for new life. He realized something that changed how he saw everything. Nature doesn't mourn what refuses to thrive. It redirects energy toward what will. The tree wasn't dying because he failed. It was dying because it was done. And his job wasn't to force it to keep living. His job was to recognize when something had run its course and make space for what wanted to grow. You're that gardener. And the people you keep trying to save, they're that dying tree. You're not giving up on them by walking away. You're choosing where your light goes. So why does this feel so hard? Why does walking away feel like failure? Why do you lie awake at night replaying arguments, thinking of what you should have said, wondering if you could have made them understand if you'd just been clearer? I'll tell you why. Because you've been taught that love means endless patience. You've been taught that if you're a good person, you never give up on anyone. You've been taught that setting boundaries makes you selfish. And all of that is a lie designed to keep you manageable, designed to keep you giving your power away to people who have no idea what to do with it. Real love includes discernment. Real kindness includes knowing when helping someone is actually hurting both of you. Real strength includes the ability to say, I've given you everything I can, and it's not enough, and that's okay, but I'm done. Because here's the thing about weak minds, and I'm going to be blunt here, they don't want your wisdom. They want your witness. They want an audience for their confusion. They want someone to validate their refusal to grow. And the moment you start doing that, you become complicit in their stagnation. Han Fei understood this better than anyone. He wrote about rulers who fell because they listened to everyone. He wrote about advisors who died because they kept telling truth to people who decided lies were more comfortable. He said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that the wise ruler speaks less and acts more. And most people misunderstand that. They think it means be efficient with your words. But that's not what he meant. He meant that most speech is wasted. Most arguments are theater. Most debates aren't about finding truth. They're about who can perform confidence better. And the moment you realize that, you stop playing the game. But here's what Han Fei didn't say out loud, what he left between the lines. Most people will hate you for your silence. They'll call you cold, arrogant, detached. Because when you stop justifying yourself, you force them to sit with their own emptiness. And that terrifies them. Your explanations were never about helping them understand. They were about managing their discomfort with the fact that you see the world differently. And when you stop managing that for them, they panic. Because now they have to either do the work of actually thinking, or they have to admit they never wanted to in the first place. Let me break this down into something you can actually use. There are 3 types of people you'll encounter. The first type is curious. They ask questions because they genuinely want to understand. They might disagree with you, but they're willing to sit in the discomfort of not knowing. They're willing to have their minds changed. When you talk to these people, you feel energized afterward. Even if the conversation was hard, even if you disagreed, you both walked away with something. These people are rare, and they deserve your best. The second type is confused. They're not trying to challenge you. They're genuinely lost. They need guidance, and they're willing to receive it. These people will listen. They might need you to explain things a few different ways. They might need time to process. But there's a humility there, a willingness to not know. These people deserve your patience. Not infinite patience, but real patience. The kind that helps them find their own clarity. The third type is combative. They're not asking questions to learn. They're asking questions to trap you. They're not listening to understand. They're listening for weak points. They've already decided you're wrong, and they're just looking for evidence to confirm it. Every answer you give them becomes ammunition. Every moment of vulnerability becomes a target. And these people deserve nothing from you. Not your time, not your energy, not your carefully crafted explanations. They deserve silence. And if that makes you uncomfortable, if that feels mean, you need to ask yourself why you think being used is more virtuous than having boundaries. Here's how you tell the difference. After you explain something to someone, watch what they do with it. Do they build on it? Do they ask deeper questions? Or do they immediately tear it down? Do they say, I never thought of it that way? Or do they say, yeah, but is everything? It's the sound of someone who's not interested in integration. They're interested in opposition. They're not trying to add to the conversation. They're trying to win it. And the moment you hear that, you should disengage. Not angrily, not defensively, just completely. Because anything you say after that is feeding something that doesn't actually want to be fed. It wants to fight. Now, I want to talk about something uncomfortable. The reason this is so hard for you is because you get something out of it. Not consciously, but on some level, arguing with these people makes you feel important. It makes you feel needed. It makes you feel like you're the only one who sees clearly, and they need you to guide them. And that's a powerful feeling. That's an addictive feeling. But it's a trap. Because what you're actually doing is outsourcing your sense of worth to people who don't value you. You're letting them determine your importance by how much they need you to explain yourself. And that's a game you can't win. The people who drain you aren't doing it maliciously most of the time. They're doing it because you let them. Because you've trained them to believe that your attention is always available, that your patience is unlimited, that they can pull you into the same circular conversation over and over, and you'll show up every time. And why wouldn't they think that? You've never shown them otherwise. You've never said, "I've explained this. I'm not explaining it again." You've never walked away mid-conversation because you realized it wasn't going anywhere. You've been playing the role of the endlessly patient teacher, and they've been playing the role of the student who never learns. And both of you are trapped. So here's what changes everything. Silence is not passive. Silence is surgical. When you stop engaging, you stop feeding the dynamic. And that's when you see the truth. They don't miss your wisdom. They miss your reaction. Your frustration was their fuel. You need to be understood was their supply. Take it away, and they collapse into irrelevance. And I know that sounds harsh. I know it sounds cold, but pay attention to what happens when you actually try this. The people who were desperate for your help suddenly stop reaching out. The people who needed your perspective suddenly find someone else to debate. Because it was never about you. It was about them having an audience. And here's the paradox that nobody tells you. The clearer you become, the fewer people will understand you. And that's not a failure. That's a filter. Clarity repels those who thrive in confusion. If everyone agrees with you, you haven't said anything true. You said something safe. You've said something that doesn't challenge anyone to grow. Real truth is polarizing. Not because it's trying to be, but because it demands something from people. It demands that they think. It demands that they question their own certainty. And most people would rather stay comfortable in their confusion than do that work. So when people fall away from you as you get clearer, that's not you becoming cold. That's you becoming precise. That's you becoming unavailable for dynamics that don't serve you. And the people who stay, the people who can handle your clarity, those are your people. Those are the ones worth investing in. Everyone else is just passing through, and you need to let them pass. Let me give you something practical because I know you're thinking, okay, I get it, but what do I actually do? Here's what you do. The next time someone pulls you into an argument, before you respond, pause for 3 seconds. I'm serious. Count to 3 in your head. And in those 3 seconds, ask yourself one question. Is this person asking because they want to grow or because they want to fight? And you'll know the answer immediately if you're honest with yourself. You've always known the answer. You just haven't trusted it. If they want to fight, you smile. You nod. And you walk away. You don't explain why you're walking away. You don't justify it. You don't say, I don't think this conversation is productive. Because that's still engagement. That's still giving them something to grab onto. You just disengage. Physically leave if you can. If you can't, you change the subject. You become unavailable. And you give them nothing. No reaction. No defensiveness. No carefully crafted final statement. Nothing. Because the only way to win a game you shouldn't be playing is to stop playing. And here's what's going to happen. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to escalate. They're going to accuse you of being dismissive, of not caring, of thinking you're better than them. And that's when you need to stay silent the most. Because what they're really saying is, you're not giving me what I want, and I don't know what to do with that. They're used to you engaging. They're used to you taking the bait. And when you don't, they don't know how to function. So they'll try harder. They'll get louder. They'll pull out every manipulation they can think of. And you just keep walking. Now, let me give you another practice. I call it the one-sentence boundary. When someone won't let something go, when they keep pushing, when they demand that you explain yourself one more time, you say this. I've said what I needed to say. That's it. No elaboration. No softening it with, I'm sorry, but no justifying it with, I just think, I've said what I needed to say. And then you stop talking. Watch how uncomfortable that makes people. Watch how they scramble to fill the silence. Watch how they try to pull you back in. And you just stay silent. Because that sentence is complete. There's nothing to add. And the more they push after that, the more they expose what this was really about. Here's another practice, and this one's going to change your life if you actually do it. Every hour you spend explaining yourself to someone who won't listen is an hour stolen from someone who will. So make a list right now. 3 people or 3 projects that actually deserve your clarity. People who've shown you they can receive what you have to offer. Projects that light you up instead of drain you. And for the next month, every time you're tempted to engage with someone who's already proven they don't value your insight, redirect that energy to someone on that list instead. Pour yourself into the people and things that actually want what you have. Watch how fast your life changes. And here's the last practice, and it's the most important one. Before you engage in any conversation that feels like it might go sideways, ask yourself this: will this conversation make me sharper, or will it make me smaller? And be ruthless with your answer. Not every conversation that's hard makes you smaller. Some hard conversations are exactly what you need. They challenge you. They force you to clarify your thinking. They make you better. But you know the difference between a conversation that challenges you and a conversation that diminishes you. One feels like a workout. The other feels like an assault. One leaves you tired but stronger. The other leaves you exhausted and doubting yourself. And if it's the latter, it's not a conversation. It's a trap, and you walk away. Now, I want to talk about something that might be the most important part of this whole thing. Detachment is not the opposite of love. Detachment is the highest form of respect. When you stop trying to save someone from their own thinking, you're respecting their autonomy. You're saying, you're allowed to be wrong. You're allowed to stay in confusion. You're allowed to not grow. That's your choice. But it's not happening on my time. And that's not cruel. That's honoring their free will while also honoring your own boundaries. See, most people think that if you really cared, you'd never give up. You'd keep trying forever. You'd sacrifice yourself on the altar of their potential. But that's not care. That's codependence. Real care knows when to hold on and when to let go. Real care knows that some people need to hit bottom before they're ready to climb. And your job is not to cushion every fall. Your job is to be there for the people who are actually climbing. And here's what nobody tells you about this. When you start practicing this level of discernment, when you start withdrawing your energy from people who don't value it, something miraculous happens. The people who do value you start showing up differently. They start respecting you more. They start treating your time like it's precious because you've shown them it is. They start bringing their best because they know you won't accept less. Your relationships get deeper. Your conversations get richer because you're no longer wasting yourself on people who aren't ready for you. But there's a transition period, and it's uncomfortable. When you first start setting these boundaries, people are going to push back hard. The people who are used to having unlimited access to you are going to accuse you of changing, of becoming someone you're not, of abandoning them. And you need to understand what's really happening there. They're not upset because you've changed. They're upset because you've stopped being manageable. You've stopped being predictable. You've stopped sacrificing yourself to make them comfortable. And they're grieving the version of you that was easier to use. Let them grieve. That version of you is dead, and it needed to die because that version of you was slowly killing the real you. The you that knows your worth. The you that understands your energy is sacred. The you that refuses to explain yourself to people who've already decided not to understand. That version of you is finally being born. And birth is messy. Birth is painful. But it's also the only way to actually live. I want to tell you one more story before we bring this home. There's this concept in martial arts called economy of motion. It means that a master never uses more energy than necessary. They don't flail. They don't waste movement. Every action is precise, intentional, efficient. A beginner, on the other hand, uses 10 times the energy to accomplish the same thing. They're trying so hard. They're putting in so much effort. But most of that effort is wasted because it's not directed. It's just motion for the sake of motion. Your arguments with weak minds are like that. You're flailing. You're using all this energy, crafting perfect responses, staying up late, rehearsing conversations, and it's all wasted motion. Because the target isn't interested in being hit. They're just interested in watching you swing. A master knows when to strike and when to stay still. A master knows that sometimes the most powerful move is no move at all. That's what silence is. It's not giving up. It's economy of motion. It's refusing to waste yourself on a target that isn't there. And when you understand that, everything shifts. You stop seeing arguments as something you need to win. You stop seeing people's disagreement as something you need to fix. You start seeing the whole game for what it is, a distraction from your real work. And your real work is not convincing people who don't want to be convinced. Your real work is becoming so clear, so grounded, so sovereign that you don't need anyone's validation. Your real work is building something so solid that other people's confusion can't shake it. Han Fei lived in a time of chaos, remember? 7 kingdoms at war. Everyone had an opinion. Everyone thought they knew the answer. And most of them died arguing. The ones who survived, the ones who thrived, they were the ones who understood that power doesn't announce itself. Power doesn't defend itself. Power doesn't explain itself to people who aren't ready to understand. Power just is. And everyone else has to adjust. You've been taught that power is loud. That power demands to be seen. That power proves itself through debate. But that's not power. That's insecurity. Real power is quiet. Real power is selective. Real power knows that the right people will recognize it without you having to say a word. And the wrong people, they'll never recognize it no matter how much you explain. So you stop explaining. Now, here's what I need you to understand. And this is the part that ties everything together. You're not broken. You're not too much. You're not the problem. You've just been giving your precision to people who are comfortable in the blur. You've been trying to bring light into rooms that have locked the windows. You've been knocking on doors that were never going to open. And you've been calling that love. But it's not love. It's self-betrayal. Love includes discernment. Love includes boundaries. Love includes the willingness to let people experience the consequences of refusing to grow. Because when you keep catching someone every time they fall, you rob them of the lesson the fall was supposed to teach. You're not helping them by staying. You're enabling them, and you're destroying yourself in the process. So here's your permission slip. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to walk away from conversations that go nowhere. You're allowed to let people think you're cold. You're allowed to prioritize your peace over their comfort. You're allowed to give your best to people who actually value it. You're allowed to be done, and you don't owe anyone an explanation for why. The moment you accept that, your whole life reorganizes. The people who are draining you fall away. The opportunities that were hidden behind all that noise start to appear. The version of yourself you've been too tired to become finally has the energy to show up. Because you're no longer spending it all on people who are never going to change anyway. And let me be clear about something. This doesn't mean you become some isolated, cynical person who trusts no one. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you lose your compassion. It means your compassion becomes strategic. It means you care deeply about the right people instead of shallowly about everyone. It means you understand that your capacity to help people is directly related to how well you protect your own energy. You can't pour from an empty cup, and arguing with people who don't think is how you drain the cup. So what does this actually look like in your life starting today? It looks like you noticing when someone is pulling you into a familiar pattern. It looks like you pausing before you respond. It looks like you asking yourself, is this person here to grow or to fight? It looks like you choosing not to engage when you realize it's the latter. It looks like you redirecting your energy to the people and projects that actually feed you. It looks like you getting comfortable with being misunderstood by people whose understanding was never going to matter anyway. And it looks like you finally giving yourself permission to be unavailable for dynamics that make you smaller. Because you're not here to be everyone's teacher. You're not here to be everyone's therapist. You're not here to explain basic reality to people who are committed to misunderstanding it. You're here to build something, to create something, to become something. And every moment you spend defending yourself to people who've already decided you're the enemy is a moment stolen from that becoming. So let me leave you with this. Han Fei's law of clarity isn't just about knowing when to speak. It's about knowing when your silence is more powerful than any argument you could make. It's about understanding that withdrawal is not weakness, it's strategy. It's about recognizing that the people who accuse you of being cold are often the ones who've been feeding off your warmth without giving anything back. Your clarity is not a gift everyone deserves. Your patience is not something everyone has earned. Your explanations are not required for people who've already decided not to understand. And the moment you accept that, you become free. Free from the exhausting cycle of trying to convince people who don't want to be convinced. Free from the weight of other people's willful ignorance. Free to pour yourself into the things that actually matter. I am not required to make sense to people who refuse to think. My clarity is my currency, and I spend it wisely. Say that to yourself. Write it down. Put it somewhere you'll see it every day. Because that's your mantra now. That's the truth that's going to save you from wasting the next 10 years of your life the way you wasted the last 10. You're not broken. You're not too much. You've just been giving your precision to people who are comfortable in a blur. And now you're done. You're finally done. And that's not something to feel guilty about. That's something to celebrate. Because the version of you that's been trapped in those pointless arguments, that's been diminished by people who don't think, that's been explaining yourself to people who are never going to listen, that version just died. And the version that's being born, that version is going to change everything. So stop arguing. Start withdrawing. Watch how fast your world rearranges itself around the space you create. Watch how the right people start showing up. Watch how the opportunities you couldn't see before suddenly become obvious. Watch how you finally have the energy to become who you were always meant to be. Because that's what happens when you stop wasting yourself on people who don't deserve you. And remember this, the strongest move isn't the final word. It's the first silence. It's the moment you realize you don't owe anyone your explanation. It's the moment you choose yourself over their comfort. It's the moment you walk away from the argument and toward your actual life. If this hit you somewhere deep, I want you to do something for me. I want you to leave a comment telling me one person or one situation you're finally ready to release. You don't have to name them. You don't have to tell the whole story. Just acknowledge it. Say out loud, I'm done with this. Because there's power in declaring it. There's freedom in admitting it. And there's a whole community of people here who understand exactly what you're going through because they've been there too. Hit the like button if this resonated with you. If you felt something shift while you were listening. If you realized you've been giving your best to people who are never going to value it. And subscribe if you want more of this. More truth that doesn't apologize for being sharp. More wisdom that respects your intelligence enough to tell you what you need to hear instead of what's comfortable. Because here's the thing. Most content out there is designed to make you feel good for 10 minutes and then leave you exactly where you started. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the truth that actually changes your life. The kind of truth that's uncomfortable at first, but liberating once you accept it. The kind of truth that ancient philosophers like Han Fei understood, but that modern culture tries to bury under layers of toxic positivity and performative kindness. You deserve better than that. You deserve wisdom that actually works. And sometimes that wisdom sounds harsh. Sometimes it sounds cold, but it's not. It's just honest. And honesty is the most loving thing I can give you. Because anything less than that would be me treating you like you can't handle the truth. And I know you can. That's why you're still here. So go forward from this moment differently. Notice when someone tries to pull you into the old pattern. Notice when you're about to explain yourself for the 100th time. And instead of doing it, pause, breathe, and choose silence. Choose withdrawal. Choose yourself. Because you've spent long enough choosing everyone else. And look where that got you. Exhausted, frustrated, doubting yourself, wondering if you're the problem. You're not the problem. You never were. You were just playing a game you were never meant to win. And now you know better. Now you're done playing. Now you're stepping off the court and walking towards something real. Something that actually feeds you. Something that actually matters. And the people who are draining you, they're going to keep playing that game with someone else. They're going to find another person to exhaust. Another person to confuse. Another person to make feel crazy for caring about truth. But that person isn't you anymore. You're out. You're free. You're finally free. Welcome to clarity. Welcome to sovereignty. Welcome to the rest of your life. The strongest move isn't the final word. It's the first silence. Now go be silent in all the ways that matter. And watch what happens next.